I do believe that it's about time that a woman runs this country. I think I'm well prepared for it. As a matter of fact, that's the last step I need to get into being Prime Minister. So, I've done the administration. I know the country. I toured the country 4 times. 3 times with him, and the last time was when I was leading the list for the parliamentary elections. I do have a program that I do believe can move us forward. So I will go and talk to the Senegal.
Hello, Madam Touré. It's good to have you on West African Congress Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So, for the populace in the West African sub-region and beyond, Mimi Touré is that vocal, confident, outspoken politician. So, who really is Mimi Touré?
Well, I am myself. I've been advocating for my own continent and being involved in politics at a very early age. In 1993, I was already leading a presidential candidate campaign. Of course, I had a position in the UN too, but I've been interested in politics and for quite a while, for a long time. And I do believe that we have to stand for our own countries and for our continent, our great continents and African countries.
So talk about starting politics for a very long time. You started quite early at age 14 as an activist. You came in a home of a father who is a doctor and a mother who is a midwife, and you didn't trend in their space of profession like the African settings that we have. How did you find that? How challenging was that? And how did you find it easy with your parents?
Well, I was supported by my father, a little bit less by my mother. But both were very supportive. Of course, they wanted us to focus on school, so I was doing quite good in school, so that was not an issue. My dad used to be a politician in his early age and was also a unionist. At some point, he led the medical doctors' unions in Senegal, so he understood where I was coming from. And when I went to university in France, I got also involved in students' political activism and politics. So when I came back after my degrees, I carried on politics. But at some point, I went to the United Nations, and I led the Gender and Human Rights branch. So that was also political somehow. So I've been in the field for quite a while, and I'm very happy with what I've been doing so far. And I also call upon young people to come and join. I think it's a very fulfilling to sort of advocate and fight for your own country, your own continent, because nobody's going to do it for us. We have to mobilize ourselves. We have now very smart young people. They're venturing into all fields. They're further educated. They have access to information, and I think it's a great time for Africa, and we have to really support our youngsters to move forward and to fight against what we are seeing, unfortunately, violation of constitution, corruption. We have to support them as they, mothers and big sisters, and so that's what I'm doing also.
So was your father's political career, did it influence yours, your father's political career?
I don't think so. He was one, but at a very, he didn't sort of flourish. He went to the UN and became a UN senior officer. But my bigger brother was involved in politics. We bring some of the, leftist literature. Oh, I got interested. But mostly, that was at high school, because at that time you had this East and West divide. So I got sort of involved into politics, into leftist rhetorics at the early age, 14. Influenced also by one of my teachers. So you can see how teachers are important for the formation of students. So all of that, was sort of a nice heritage, and I built upon it.
Right. So let's get into the mainstream of your political career, beginning with your relations with Macky Sall. You left New Jersey down to Senegal to help him with the write-ups of his campaign in 2012. How do you feel about that? And what actually influenced your decision to leave? Because I know you have so much going on at that time, and then you left all this, came down to Senegal to help Macky Sall.
Yeah, I was sitting on a director level position, and I was doing quite well. I had a contract that was supposed to end at my retirement, so I was quite well set. My kids were going to universities and high schools there. But as I said, I had a strong calling that I have to contribute to my country. Macky Sall, we have almost the same age, he's just 1 year older, and I saw an opportunity for change, and I wanted to support him. So I took leave without pay and came and supported him. He won, and I stayed. That's how it went. And I think he did many good things, undoubtedly. So,
can you clear the rumors that you would want to vie for the presidency also in 2024?
Absolutely, I announced it. I announced it very clear on the 1st of January. I will run. I do believe that it's about time that a woman run this country. I think I'm well prepared for it. As a matter of fact, that's the last step I need to get into. Be Prime Minister. So I've heard the administration. I know the country. I toured the country 4 times. 3 times with him, and the last time was when I was leading the list for the parliamentary elections. I do have a program that I do believe can move us forward. So I will go and talk to the Senegalese and ask for their votes.
So what do you think your chances are, looking at Senegal, the settings, it's Muslim dominated, and I wouldn't want to go deeper, you understand what it means for a woman to lead. Do you think your chances are high?
It's not a problem, I do believe. If you look into the legislative election or the municipal election, the last one, many women, young women, won over, big men, what we call here, big men, ministers. No, I think we have the chance of living in a country where 70% of the population is below the age of 35.
Are you sure Senegal is ready?
I do. If Liberia was ready, why not Senegal?
Liberia is not a Muslim-dominated community.
No, I think this is a wrong view of Islam. As I said, in very rural areas, women won over men. Well, that is at the community level. So it can happen at the community level. Why wouldn't it be happening at the national level?
We are talking about the lion's share.
No, I do think that it's very doable. I think it's a matter of capacity, it's a matter of vision, and we're gonna go and test the system anyway. Yeah.
So if
you don't test the system, you don't know.
It's about testing the system.
No, I think the system is ready. But if I don't run, the system is not going to come and take you from your house and put you at the presidency. You have to run, you have to go and convince Senegalese. They ask to be convinced. I saw it very clearly in the last election. As I said, many women in very traditional setting, very rural area, won over men, over ministers. And I think we are living through new times. Unfortunately, it seems like African men don't see that. Women are very determined, and young people are more open-minded. And I think it's doable. It's very feasible.
Right. Yeah. So do you think, are you certain that women's representation in the Senegalese political landscape is high?
Of course, we are 48% of the parliament. So I think that's not a problem. As a matter of fact, that's women voting for men most of the time. They're very mobilized at the base, at the community level. Now they believe more and more in themselves, and I have to do the final push. I think we need to see a woman at the presidency. to definitely convince them that it's doable. And as I said, it was possible in Liberia, why not in Senegal?
So what do you think you're going to sell to the Senegalese populace that would, encourage them, or that would push them to take you to the top?
Well, I do think that, first of all, my first suggestion is we have to get rid of poverty in Senegal and in Africa, and it's possible. We are the richest continent and we are the poorest. So it means that there is something we are doing definitely wrong. And that is, the failure of our leaders over time since the independence. How come we're rich, the richest? How come we are the poorest? So what are we doing wrong? My answer to that is, first of all, we have missed the industrial revolution that occurred in Europe. And that's why Europe owed us a lot, because during that time, they were into slavery, they were into colonization. So they built themselves upon our own resources. So it is about time that we industrialize this country. Otherwise, how are you going to create massive jobs at a massive scale? Whatever we use in our daily life comes from abroad. Even the spoon we eat with, we don't manufacture them in the country. So industrialization for me is going to be the backbone of my programs. But of course, it's going to be based on the following sectors. Agriculture, that needs to be modernized big time, and we have to create a chain of value. We are a peanut producing country, but we have more than 300 products that derive from peanuts. You can even create electricity with it. You can do cosmetics. You can do so many things. But we don't do that. Same for fishing. And all the sectors we need to support, and that's what I'm gonna be taking. Small company acts, because 80% of our economy is informal, like in Nigeria. Yeah, whatever they produce doesn't go to the national accounts. We have to help them, to support them when it comes to training, making sure that they produce on good standards, make sure that they have access to financial support, which they don't, and then take them to another level. I think it's very, very important that we move forward. Nigeria is moving the right way when it comes to that. Second of all, I think good governance has to be key, because corruption is an issue that we have to tackle. Corruption is not only about money evasion, but it's also about damaging the trust that citizens must have toward the institution and toward their leaders. And that's the beginning of instability. And so we have to tackle it head front and make sure that we put processes in place, especially at the ministry level. We do have here what we call the State Inspection Agency. These are controllers of use of public money, but they're based at the presidency. They work under the leadership of the president, and sometimes use it for political purposes, by the way. So they have to be sitting in to ministries, so they can do control of expenditures, they can authorize the expenditures of the minister, and then they become very independent, and that will help better use and management of public resources. That is very, very important that we do that. But the most also reform I want to introduce is even to renovate or to reform the structure of the way the states operate. It's a top-down approach. We have to reverse it. We have just do cosmetic changes into the system that the colonizer left us. Okay, the president is the big man, deciding over everything. After him, the ministers, and after that you have the governors, and then at the base, maybe they would get 10% of the budget. It has to be reversed. I think we have to have what I call Conseil de Quartier. In English, it would be neighborhood council or village council. And we should have plan of action at that level, being directly funded by the government. And you're gonna reverse the approach, and it should be from the bottom up. And because at the neighborhood council level, you can deal with training of young people. You know exactly how many young people are in this neighborhood. You can support women because it's at a very controlled environment. Of course, the state has to supervise that, but at least the community sees itself into government's affairs and businesses. So that's my. We can spend a day discussing my program. I'll invite you when I launch it.
Right.
But you have the flavor of what I would like to do. I do believe that community development is about time that it becomes a reality. It's just in the talking politician. That's not the case. But until the citizen, the African citizen, have the confidence that they're contributing and they're receiving what they deserve from the government, until that happens, it is going to be difficult to build our countries because the government cannot do everything. At some point, you need investment of the population, but for that, they have to be able to decide, over their own destiny through these neighborhood and village councils, where they can have plan of action, they can define their own priorities, and of course, that money has to be properly managed. And the fight against corruption for me is paramount because we do know and it's one of our problems, and it creates, as I say, sort of a loss of trust from the citizen toward their leaders.
Yeah, Madam Touré, you seem to have a very good policy. Like you're saying, the flavor, I'm just getting the flavor of it, and it's not so good. But I would, as a voter that you have just finished preaching your policies to, I want to ask, you have held the position of economic, social and environmental president, that is in 2019. Why didn't you use all this, didn't you implement all these policies during that time when you were given the mandate, and it is now that you want to do it?
So because I was only on an advisory position, so that's the reason why. But if you go into all the advisory report we have produced, I was sort of hinting at what I'm saying. But being at the top seat gives you then the power to implement the advice you were giving. Because I come from a different also political vision, obviously. So I will be running. Hopefully I will win, and then you will see me in action at that time. But so far I was more in advisory position.
Right. So you were also a Minister of Justice. Back then, what are some of the policies that you have implemented as a Minister of Justice? And looking back now, what you see, are you satisfied? And what are some of the policies that you have put in place that were taken out and those that were maintained?
Well, I think we started well when it came to accountability, financial accountability. There was some trial that went on, and then after that, that wasn't the priority of the government. Some of the people who were pursued by the justice system found themselves into the new government, so it became sort of a political transaction, and it's unfortunate, but that was the decision of the president himself. I think, as I said, we have to bring back good governance, because all of that wasn't under the umbrella of good governance. But definitely what I am suggesting too is the reform of the justice system. There is still a link between the president and the judges and the prosecutors. Prosecutors, okay, because they act on behalf of the public. So the public being, the president who has been voted by the public. So that link, we can even explain it. But as long as the president decides over the career of judges, it is going to be difficult to have, a fully independent justice system. So that needs to change. That's one of the suggestions I'm making. Because as we speak, to tell the truth, there is sort of a lack of trust of the citizen toward the justice system. They perceive it as a tool to pursue political opponents.
So you left the Ministry of Justice. You left the Ministry of Justice, but you didn't leave the Macky Sall government completely. And you said after you left, if I get you right, it became like a political transactional system. Don't you think you had a responsibility as a prime minister then to advise the government on how the justice system was going?
I did.
Why didn't you stop that?
Well, I did. You don't do your advisory work doesn't happen on the public space. I mean, it's a one-on-one with the president. But at some point, he got re-elected, and he is going to end his term. As I told you in the beginning of our conversation, he did some good things. Other things could have been better, but he's done. So now in February, when he leaves, and hopefully when I get elected, then I can address seriously those issues. That's the point I'm having. That's what it is. But I am very optimistic that I will get elected and I will be able to change that. I am not saying that what we have done is bad and that would have not been serious even saying that, because I was part of that. But doesn't mean that when you are in a government, you don't oppose some practice, you make the alternative.
But why is it so? Because when you look at the Western world, someone can be in government and still oppose.
Well, I did. That's why I didn't stay long in my position, if you recall. Because I am an outspoken person. I would, express my disagreement, but you don't leave every time you disagree. I mean, that's a process, and he is the one who has been elected. But now, his second term is about to end. In 8 months, he will leave, and then he will be replaced. Hopefully, I'll replace him through a democratic process, and then we can implement all we have discussed about these past minutes.
So, looking at how you left your job, your well-paid job in New Jersey, came down to Senegal, assisted the Macky Sall administration, and like you put it at the end, you were dragged out.
Yeah.
Do you feel used by this government?
No, not at all, because some good things have been done, as I said. I think I contributed as much as I could. I served. So I have no regret, as a matter of fact. And it's not over. The story is not over. So I think maybe that's the road to the presidency. It comes not easy. It's always bumpy. But I remain very, determined and committed to continue to struggle, I would say, and to succeed. So I call upon also women to sort of remain committed, and I'm telling them that it's not always a straight, smooth ride. It can be extremely bumpy, but at the end, it's a big satisfaction to serve your country, especially after you win.
Right, so talk about calling on women, with the advice of it's not going to be smooth, it's going to be really bumpy. Just recently in Nigeria, Aisha Bilani lost her seat as a governor. She was announced as a governor, there was a supplementary election, she lost the seat. What do you think women's participation in government, especially in the sub-region and even beyond, how do you see women participation in election? Because you said with Senegal, you are certain that the women participation in politics is high. So how do you see it across the sub-region?
Well, I think I would encourage her to continue to remain committed and to continue the struggle, because it's a real struggle for women. But they're making it. As I said, Liberia had a two-term president. So we are seeing it also in Tanzania.
Yeah,
and I think, absolutely. So we have to hustle through, to carry on. It's not an easy one. But I think what women also need to understand that they need a little bit more solidarity among themselves. Because if you have 51% of the electorate, we should, sort of cultivate a little bit more solidarity and support, women candidates. If women candidates do have strong support from women voters, they'll make it. And as a matter of fact, I've been advocating for an alliance between women and young people, because these are our kids now. So they should know that when we are in office, we do as we do at home, taking care of them. And taking care of the family becomes the nation. So I think women do have a strong qualification that they learn very early, to rule and run well our countries, because solidarity is in our DNA. Yeah? With little resources, they manage to feed the family. They manage to give them health care. Sometimes they just even sacrifice themselves for that. So I think that's the type of leadership that we need for our country. We don't need leadership who think about themselves first and the other afterward. So I think it's a good deal to have women at top position. I think they're prepared to share the resources in the right way as they do, in communities and in families.
You have been in politics, you have been in government, and looking at the whole system, looking at how Africa is going, because in your submission you even mentioned about how our political system is, our governance system is, how things are being in the reverse, which you want to change. Do you think we were really ready for independence? Were we really ready when we told the West that we don't want you to govern us anymore, we can manage our affairs? Was Africa really ready?
Well, the West should have never colonized us in the first place. That was the first aggression, starting with slavery and then colonization. So they should have never been here in the first place. That's my submission. I think, as I said, some countries did better than others. That also we have to say that within Africa. That is very clear. We are not all the same. So it's a matter of leadership again. And leadership comes sometimes with luck. Some countries were lucky to have better leadership than others. But I think we were playing the catch-up game because, as I said, we lost the window of opportunity of industrialization, while the West were industrializing itself with our resources. So now and then after that we went through the colonization system. Now we are catching up. But my idea is that we have to do, a lot of leapfrogging. We have to accelerate processes. And I think that our forte is, the massive bulk of young people. I think young people are ready for change, young people are ready for innovation, but we are not using that advantage enough. We see young people as a threat. Most leaders see young people as a threat because they see them demonstrating, they see them as yes, but why don't you look into the reason of their demonstration, the reason of their unhappiness, and you address it? The minute we'll be able to address that properly, this huge African youth, African force, is going to sort of, leapfrog us very far. So that's why I'm very optimistic about that. As I see it, African young people are very creative, they're committed, they're dynamic, but they're not properly supported and put on track. So that's where we need to put more effort, including women. They're feeding the African society, right? And the statistics are very clear, but they don't get enough support. That's why in Senegal I'm calling for a bank of women, Senegalese women, because they are lacking, the resources to really move from micro activities to become, enterprises. But all of that is something we need to work for. Again, to your question, I think we have always been ready. We have been attacked. We went through so many aggression, but we survived. Right. So which means that Africans are very resilient. Mm-hmm. You go to South Africa, the Aztec and the Incas, and they have disappeared. Even the Amerindian in the United States, they have disappeared from the surface of Earth. But we are still here, standing, and we're doing pretty well. That is also something that you, in the communication field, needs to highlight. In 1960. The life expectancy in Senegal, and most probably in the whole West Africa, was below the age of 50. Below the age of 50. Now it's around 63. It's still low, but we can accelerate it, which means that we have seen progress. Here in Senegal, when I was going to high school, maybe 30% of the classroom would be women. This year and last year, there were more girls sitting for the exam to get to secondary school. There was more girls than women. Last year, there were more female graduating from medical school than boys. So we have accelerated progress, but not in all fields. As I said, the priorities are in industrialization, in training for markets of our young people. It's in good governance. It's in really supporting the informal sector and sort of making them evolve into small business and industries ready to operate properly. So I'm an optimistic African.
Right. During your submission, you made one significant, point, which has to do with African politicians see the youth as a threat. And like you said, the youth really form, most part of the 70%. 70%, that is like almost, because in 70%, it means the youth are leading in that. Yet, the politicians see them as threats, even though it has been like a rumor until it is confirmed, especially coming from a politician like yourself, who is not only a politician, but someone who has been in governance, in governing affairs of a country, not just any country, but Senegal. Why are the African youth a threat to?
Well, it's a perception. They are not a threat. For me, they are an asset. They're definitely an asset. But most politicians see them as threat.
Yeah.
Because they're in the street, when they're not happy, they demonstrate, sometimes violently, etc. They're challenging actually the patriarchal system. That's where it comes from. That's why I see a strong alliance to be built between women and young people, because that's the two groups that form 80% of the society. But they're marginalized by all means. Actually, most resources are toward men that look like you, or even older, maybe, because we are living through a patriarchy system. The chiefdom, the African chiefdom, is not about young people or women. So that's why we translate it into politics. So that needs to change. We have to really put young people at the center of governance. We have to put in place programs that address the needs. The first need is education, it's jobs. That's the needs there. If you have 70% of your population that is below the age of 35, I think you should spend most of your time trying to find them jobs. For me, it's the logic. So I'm not very sure that's what we've been doing. So
instead of trying to find them jobs, why don't we let the youth lead instead of the elderly ones like yourself?
Why don't we
let the youth lead, because they are forming even 70% of the population.
Yeah, 70%. Some of them are 19. You're not going to give a ministerial position.
You said they have creative ideas, so don't you think they can use their creative ideas
they can.
to change the system?
Yeah, but first of all,
you are envisioning it.
Yeah, but they have to be trained properly. First of all, they have to participate. Absolutely, I think we can have, as a matter of fact, the president of France was 30-something when he got elected. Right? Yeah. So that also.
But in Africa, it's rare.
It's rare, but it should happen. President Maxime was elected; he was quite young. So that is not an issue. But I think we have to make sure that they are well prepared also to lead. That's also another. Because you lead from knowledge. You lead also with experience. I think that when you are 25, you have experience and you have knowledge, so there is no problem. For me, it's a matter of vision, it's a matter of skills, it's a matter of experience. And you can acquire them at a very early stage, so that's not a problem. But I'm talking about the bulk of African youth. What they need as we speak, they want to be dignified, active citizens. You cannot be a dignified, active citizen when you're jobless. Impossible. Yeah. So the priority for African countries, the stability of Africa will come with massive job creation. You cannot have massive job creation if you're not industrialized. It's not possible. This is the link that is being made. So the issue of industrialization is even about the existence of Africa in the short run. So that is.
I like that point where you said you cannot be put to lead when you're jobless. And when we go around the circles to come back to the issue, you realize that it is the same people governing the country that has made the system for people younger to be jobless. Because talk about our education system, there are lots of graduates who have certificates, yet they don't have jobs. Because you have to know somebody from the top. You have to know an uncle who is a minister or a member of parliament to get there. So don't you think it's the same system that has made these people jobless?
No,
that now is preventing them from getting to the top to lead.
I think the problem is that we didn't have a vision early enough, because job creation is not overnight, as we know. We had sort of a very mounting demographic rates. Our population increases and the rate is 2.9 per year, which means in Senegal that every year you have 300,000 young people looking for jobs. So every single year. So if we do that, we knew. But if in phase you don't create 300,000 jobs, well, I mean, you have that gap. And it's a gap filled with anger, filled with violence. That's what it is. I think now we have to address it, and very quickly. Until we solve the issue of massive job creation, it is going to be extremely difficult. No matter how willing, any government will be. That's money. I'm an economist also by training.
Right.
So I see that very, very clearly. But the possibilities are endless. They're here. Agriculture, as I say, fishery, I mean, all the sectors, even needles, we import them. So are we able to even manufacture needles in our country? So that's where it is. Sometimes the obvious is in front of you, but you don't address it. But now we have to really, as I said, accelerate the process. But let's also, within what we have, the resources that we have, we put the resources to work for the priorities we are facing. And among those priorities, you have job creation for young people and you have training. It is going to be a prerequisite if you want to, remain stable, and if you want to make sure that there will be no unrest, because these young people are fed up also.
Right. So finally, before I let you go, you should have been the Sadio Mane female version of Senegal, because you used to play for a female team back then. At least, if not being the Sadio Mane of Senegal, you should be coaching the female team by now. What happened? Can you tell us about that?
Well, that was quite a while ago. Well, that was the early days of female football, female soccer. And that was quite revolutionary. That's why I said that my parents wanted me. And it's a call upon also parents and fathers and mothers, just support your daughters, when they have healthy activities. They might flourish in it, but it might help them also to flourish in other sectors. I learned a lot from sports that taught me resilience, that taught me willingness to win, which is going to be very useful when you run for president. That taught me also abiding by rules and fairness. So that's a call upon mothers and fathers. Support your daughters. They are in a field of activities, being sport or cultural activities, but mostly also in their studies. I was supported by my father. What happened is, at some point, I went to university and I had to focus on my studies. But even at university, I was playing basketball, judo also. So I've been very, a sport young woman at that point. Yeah.
So how long did you play for the Gazelle team?
The Gazelle team, I was quite young, a few years. And after that, from football, I moved to tracks.
Right.
I was part of the national team, 200 and 100 meters. But all of that was high school. When I went to university, I had to focus on my studies because my father was very strict on making sure I I get a university degree, which I have done. But even when I was pursuing my university studies, I was playing, within university teams.
Right.
So sport is a very important way of, educating our young people. As a matter of fact, in my program, I suggest that we come back to. We do have what we call here sport at school. Every Wednesday afternoon and Saturday afternoon, all young people were competing, and I think it helps also builds resilience in the young population. So we need to come back to that. It put also sport at the center of what we are doing at school, and popular sport also need to be supported. And it's also an industry, sports, by the way. So the money, as you say, is earning a lot of money and helping these villages. That's a good thing.
Right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.